Welcome back to Talking with Ted, and we are going to tackle a different subject today. Now, I wrote a hiking column talking about when my grandnephew was up, and I went hiking with him. And I asked some other people, hey, you got some tips on hiking with kids? This is my grandnephew there, he's a teenager. And they said, one word answer: don't. Going, what? That's not acceptable. I asked my son, who is a teenager, I've hiked his legs off. Caleb, so you have any tips on hiking with kids? Don't. What? This is my own son. I must have done something wrong. All right, so we're not going to accept that answer. I mean, are you going to ask somebody, okay, are you going to hike with clothes or not? Don't. No, you're not going to say that. Okay, so kids are our future, and it's critical. I asked a young fella the other day, I think his name is Eli, and I asked him, what do you have to say about hiking with kids? You know what he said? Yeah, hike with rocks. Okay, so that is an important thing to bear in mind, is being kid-oriented. Now, I went hiking in the White Tanks. I had my other nephew with me and my son, who was, I don't know, 5, 6 years old at the time. And the ranger said, don't go on the Ford Canyon Trail, it's dangerous. Oh, perfect. The kids loved it because you had to actually climb, and there were puddles, and they threw rocks in the water, and it's things that boys will be boys, do things like that. So, how are we going to do this? A few tips, and as I see people hiking with kids especially, I will ask them, they have some tips. Okay, so here's what I've come up with. Now, it starts with mom and dad. All right, why did I go hiking? At the age of 8 years old, my first wilderness area in Arizona. Okay, because my dad took us there. Camping trips, long road trips, Colorado, Yosemite, Yellowstone, of course, all of Arizona, Oak Creek Canyon. All right, so that's what we did. It's what I knew about. And so my dad took us on these kinds of experiences, and it just became so much more now, not what I do, but it's who I am. So sometimes as parents, you got to give them a little nudge. And so my brother and I were going to get into this wilderness training school that my dad found out about. We go to the YMCA and check it out, and they tell us about their next trip, and it's a bicycle trip to Lake Pleasant. And so they said, are you going? And I looked at my brother, being kind of introverts that we are, I kind of looked at each, because we had each other to do stuff with. And my dad said, they'll go. It was the best thing he ever did for me, besides loving me unconditionally, because, right, we train up our kids in the way they should go, okay? So we identify with them, how they're wired, what they like, and we foster that. So when I've taken my son on hikes, okay, what does he like to do? He likes to go fishing. Do I like to go fishing? No. But he does. And so we go places where there's opportunities for him to go fishing. And you'll see him at Snow Lake in New Mexico, where he caught a trout with the fly rod, and he has got the biggest smile on his face, lights up the world. Okay, so when I took my kids to top of North Mountain hiking, what do I take to the top? Donuts. Okay, food, rewards, kids eat. You notice that? They like to eat all the time. They come to my library, and that's what they're looking for, food. Okay, so make it short. All right, you're not going to drive 6 hours. I've done this, so I know not to do this. 6 hours to go on a half-hour hike. There are so many places nearby in Yavapai County, wherever you're at, if you're seeing this from somewhere else, nearby, that you can make the road trip short because you want to spend more time hiking. And the other thing about that, where I took my son on a very long hike, because he's 13 years old, he should hike to a 13,000 foot summit. I mean, that just makes sense to, right? Maybe that's why the Bible says, dads, don't exasperate your kids. I tend to do that. So we're going to go to Mount Wheeler in New Mexico, highest point in New Mexico. He had hiked in Mount Charleston, Nevada, 12,000 feet, and he didn't feel so good. Little altitude business there, I suspect. Of course, his attitude was he didn't like it. But so we go to Mount Wheeler, Wheeler Peak, New Mexico, bighorn sheep running around, lakes, fishing, and we are going to go to the summit the next day. And we're camped at the lake about, I don't know, 12,000. He says, I don't want to go. Okay. You have to listen to your kids and try to discern when to push them and when to back off. I lost my son on a hike, on a bicycle ride west of Prescott. One of the scariest moments of my life. Teenager disappeared, got separated. So the sheriff helicopter, and I've written up about this in my hiking column, was about to take off, and guess who came back to the trailhead? My son, Caleb. And I said, okay, we're going to finish this hike. The sheriff said, let me talk to him a second. So he did. I was not part of that conversation. And then the deputy says to me, well, Dad, sounds like it's time for pizza. In other words, back off, chill. And I did. Okay, it's not easy sometimes to let go of our preconceived how it ought to be and to be considerate of how others are adapting to this, handling this, etc. There will be another day to come back and finish that trip, which we did, but it wasn't the time right then. Okay, so as a dad, my daughter was in 3 federal wilderness areas before she was 6 months of age. Okay, so my dad passed this on to me, I passed this on to her. When she wanted to have on her bucket list to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, who does she ask to go? Dad. Okay, when she wants to go to the top of Mount Whitney, who does she ask? Her dad. Okay, so this is a legacy, and that is one of the key things to bear in mind. It's a legacy and a lifestyle. We pass on to our kids that which is most important to us, a priority, that which we love, okay? They won't all pick it up like we did, and that's okay. They're gonna be their own person. They're gonna get into, art or music or sports or whatever it is, and that's what it's important for the parent to, again, identify and understand what that kid, how they're wired, what's important to them, and to build into that. And if the outdoors is part of that, all the better, because the more we pass on environmental concern and legacy, then the better the environment condition will be down the line, and we want that. Okay, so we need to invest in our kids. We have a collection of videos at the library, 3,000. The individual that donated those videos to us was a collector, had no kids, drug overdose. 52 years old, died. Went to get all the videos from the storage unit, laser discs, Legos, all these collectibles. Okay, he collected things, he's invested in things that took his life. It's a very sad story. We need to invest in our kids because they get life, we get a return on that investment that is life-giving, not life-taking. Challenging, but it's worth it. Okay, our kids are worth it. All right, so as I said, my first wilderness hike, de facto wilderness at the time, Miller Peak, 1969. I was 9 years old. My first rim-to-rim hike in the Grand Canyon, 1973, when I was 14 years old. So this has just been something that my dad, again, has built into me, and I am so appreciative of that. All right, so a few other tips. Build up slowly. I see adults out there hiking with kids and they're struggling, and I had some hikes where I had one on my shoulders and I'm carrying one like this and we're going through the Chiricahuas, kind of a thing. So, but it's a short trip, camping, then you build longer and longer and to make them stronger, okay? And so you need to build up slowly with the physical aspect of the trip, also with the distance of the trip, okay? Include elements they might enjoy. I mentioned the Ford Canyon and the white tanks, all right? So puddles of water, throwing in rocks. I did one of those dumb things that I do. I took my son, he's about the same age here, 6 or 7, kind of a thing. Superstitions, East Side, Trail 202. And hiking in there, and he's got a butterfly net, and he's trying to catch bugs. We find this puddle of water, and there's tadpoles in it. Yes, okay, so cool. Okay, Caleb, do that for a while. I'm gonna go look over here at this trail a little further, and so I kind of go a little further, and I'm looking around, and I see what looks like evidence of a animal, like a mountain lion, and I'm thinking like, now wait a minute. My son, who I can't see right now, is around the bend where the puddle is I probably should not, in mountain lion country, leave him unattended, okay? So he was not eating, that was a good thing. We didn't see the mountain lion. But, so you just got to, I get caught up in things, can you tell? So, but include elements, tadpoles, butterfly, just let it happen, okay? Now, teachable moments. So those are teachable moments, okay? I'm gonna tell you another one that my son taught me. We're hiking into Hell's Gate Wilderness. Overnight, he asked me, this is the one that said, don't. Now he asked me to go on a backpacking trip in Etano Creek, east of Payson. Wow, this is weird. Okay, sure, son, I'll go. All right, so we're going there. I've been in there twice before, and I got lost. He went with me on this previous trip. And I said, I just don't remember it looking like this. We've got to go back and like take another route. And Caleb's going, no, let's just go a little further. I don't think my memory as I go back and hike places I hiked before isn't good. And so I've almost resolved never to hike to the same place again because I'm relying on my memory instead of, he was relying on the evidence, the map, and his instincts of what was on site instead of my memory. So I learned from my son, who's now a young adult, 25 years of age, some things. We've got to be teachable always. We're not just always the one teaching, but we have to be ready to learn, okay? So, teachable moments goes both ways. I was hiking on the Maricopa Trail, kind of bicycling in Scottsdale. And somebody's going through there, a dad with a couple of kids, and crash, boom, blood all over the kid's head. And so the dad had no first aid, he had no water, he had nothing. He got on the phone to his wife, who he asked what to do, or whatever. So that's not gonna be a positive experience in that kid's memory, okay? So be prepared for those things like that. That can go wrong, go sideways, like getting lost, okay? All right, so take the time to do this, make it a priority, build slowly, but do it, and it'll be worth it. You'll enjoy it, your kids will enjoy it, the environment will be better for it, and keep going. And as grandkids, so forth, it'll all just keep going and build a legacy. Okay, so don't say don't. Say do when it comes up about hiking with kids. Okay? All right, so we'll see you next time with your kids, hopefully.